Today's webinar is all about creating Facebook Messenger chatbots. And for those of you who signed a little early, again, I remind you, some of you will say, hey, you know what, this isn't really for me, but I do know somebody who does this for me. Again, maybe sometimes it's a student, sometimes it's somebody's child or teenager who does this stuff. So, feel free to share this video out and let them know about it. As I also mentioned, I'll check the questions in the chat. The chat is also live for those people who are watching the recorded version of it, so they can see the chat. So I'll do my best to answer those questions nearer the end. Now, the objectives of this webinar is really to give you an understanding of the capabilities of chatbots, so you really know what it can do. And whether or not you're going to do this yourself, whether or not you're going to hire somebody else to do this for you, the key here is to say you should really understand what the limits of chatbots are, so that you can say, hey, you know what, if I'm going to pay somebody to do this, I really want them to do these things. Also, at the same time, I want you to know where to get started if you want to purchase a bot. So, there are some people who will get a developer who they'll work with. There are actually templates you can just purchase and get going with. So I'm going to show you those as well, or well, I won't necessarily show you those, but I'll show you where to get those. In fact, those are in the description as well. So with that said, I want to also add that I'm making an assumption here on the people who have signed up for this webinar. And that's that you guys are fairly knowledgeable when it comes to things like the integration of things like Chatfuel, like the integration of bots and stuff like that, that you understand some of this stuff, but you'd like to get a little bit deeper into it. Maybe it's somebody who says, I know that these things exist, but I've never really had the time to get into it. People who really understand Facebook, how to connect their websites, all of that stuff. So I'm making the assumption here that you guys on the call are fairly technical people. You understand the tech side of things. And, we really wanted to do something that was a little bit more advanced strictly for you guys. But at the same time, let's make sure that we set a foundation for this thing. What the heck is a chatbot in the first place? Well, a chatbot is a computer program designed to simulate conversation with human users, especially when it comes to over the internet. Chatbots exist for SMS, text, Facebook Messenger, websites, all kinds of things. Let me just see, somebody's making a comment of the video. No, I don't see the video. Try a quick refresh, sorry. So there's a lot of chatbots out there. And, for those of you who maybe are a little bit like still kind of going, what is it? Think about it like a robocaller kind of thing like that, but with better feedback and interaction. So, remember we used to call in sometimes, you'd call in to pay a bill to, a phone company, and it was like, say this for billing, say that for, to speak to somebody, and you'd be like going like customer service. So, give that a shot. For those of you who are saying no video, I'm just looking at it. I see the video here, so try a quick refresh. I'm hardwired into the internet here, so I'm hardwired in, and I'm checking it myself, and it looks good. Now, one thing I want you to understand is what a chatbot cannot do, and a chatbot cannot replace you. The biggest thing you can do with social media is build trust. So if you think that you're going to plug in a chatbot and it's going to do all that, then it's not going to do that. And that's one thing I really want to emphasize here. Your social media, the best thing you can do is to build trust with people. Let them interact with you. So keep that in mind. But it can do a lot for you. Number one, it can increase your response rate on your Facebook page. So on your Facebook page, it'll say how responsive you are, and it'll jump that way up. Ours, for instance, says responds within moments, because that's how we do it. We respond within moments with a bot. It helps visitors get information whenever, wherever they need. There's lots of information you put on your Facebook pages, so you can let your chatbot really, help people, kind of find that info. You can also deepen interactions on your website and encourage people to contact you. So you can have automated messages for people who interacted with your Facebook page. You can set it up on your website, those kind of things. And finally, one of the biggest, most powerful things is the ability to broadcast messages to people who have interacted with your bot. For instance, you could think of it like newsletter signups, new listing notifications, those kind of things. Instead of doing it in email, you could actually be doing it in Facebook Messenger. Now, we know Facebook Messenger, they'll advertise they have really great open rates. Well, of course they do, because none of this stuff happened. Emails had great open rates rates until people started getting bombarded with emails. So do keep that in mind. You still have to think of value, right? So, but these are some of the things a chatbot can do. And at the end of this webinar, you should have a good understanding of where to go to be able to do this stuff. Now, I saw somebody in the chat already asking, do I have to use Chatfuel? No, you don't have to use Chatfuel. There are other tools out there. And the two biggest one that I've heard of is Chatfuel and ManyChat. Now, ManyChat is really nice, but the reason I'm sticking with Chatfuel today is because ManyChat has limited custom fields and limitations on broadcast that you don't have on Chatfuel. So Chatfuel gives you a lot more out of the box that's free without having to start paying for stuff. Whereas ManyChat has, you're going to start paying for things a little bit sooner. So that's one of the nice things with Chatfuel. It really is about your reach. So if you're reaching a lot of people, if it's over 1,000 people a month, then that's when you're going to have to start paying for things. And it starts at about $30 a month. So it's actually quite reasonable. There's other ones, FlowXO. That one does a lot more than just Facebook. Imray. So that's one of the newer ones that I saw at the ARIA conference, the reality conference. Some of you maybe signed up for that chatbot. It does, via SMS text. It also does Facebook messengers and those kind of things. So keep that in mind. Next, we have the requirements for Facebook chatbot. So if you want to have a Facebook chatbot, well, there's a couple things you need. And the first two are definite musts. Number one, you need to have a Facebook business page. Chatbots are made to use on a Facebook business page. If you don't have a Facebook business page, it's going to be hard to use a chatbot. Number two is the Facebook Messenger app. This should be on your phone. It should be ready to go. That'll let you know if people are interacting with your bot and lets you jump in as well. So keep that in mind. Number three is resources. So, you're going to want to do things like get people to perhaps a sign-up page, those kind of things. So, you should have some idea of, here's some things I want to do with it. And, I'll need my images, I'll need some text copy, and I'll show you some resources on where to get that as well. You also need some requirements in terms of the audience, and that's having a good understanding of Facebook and how people interact with you. If you don't understand how people interact with you and talk with you, it's going to be hard to create this bot. You also need a good understanding of what kinds of things people will want to ask you, because it takes time to build this stuff. And, if you're going to go and build all this stuff and then it's not really going to get asked, then what's really the point? You want to make sure it's nice and streamlined. Lastly, before we get into it, I want to remind you of one thing. And I got a great picture here of Mark Zuckerberg on the stand, of course. Maybe you guys have seen this. It's a little bit in the news. Facebook is constantly changing. So that's something that is really important to remember. And that's one of the reasons that I know, I got a developer in the chat kind of talking to people. I'm not stopping that, because with many agents, having a developer on your side can be the best thing. Their job is to stay up to date with what's going on, what's possible, and what can be done so that you can focus on selling real estate. Their job is also to know what's trending. So sometimes you'll see stuff that, hey, people are doing, but it ends up kind of not being so popular in a couple weeks because everybody starts doing it. The other thing I want to mention and why I added this photo is for myself as a reminder. With all of the Cambridge Analytica stuff going on, Facebook 2 weeks ago put a stop on connecting apps to Messenger in particular. And because of that, right now, there is not a possibility to connect a bot to somebody's Facebook page. It's just not possible. Well, it is possible, but Facebook has asked developers to say, please hold off on doing that as they're refining their terms with it. So I do want you to keep in mind all of this stuff. There's going to be changes coming up. There's going to be changes that are going to happen. So keep that in mind. My best advice to you is always to keep it simple. So let's get into the building blocks of a bot. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Make sure everybody knows what the heck it takes to build a bot. There's three foundations of the Chatfuel bot. Number one, blocks. Number two, cards. And number three, user attributes. Now, in terms of that, these three things are the real core. And I'm going to spend most of my time on these three, because if you really understand these, there's a lot that can be done. I'm going to get into some of the advanced stuff, but this is incredibly important. Number one is blocks. So Chatfuel is organized into blocks. Now, not every platform is organized into blocks. This is how Chatfuel does it. On the left side of my screen here, you'll see my blocks. Blocks contain a series of messages. These are called cards, and you really help users navigate from block to block depending on how they're interacting with your bot. You could, for instance, consider that A block is like the web pages of your chatbot. So as they move through blocks, they're moving through different sections. There's two really important blocks, the default ones. The welcome block. The welcome block is the first message that is sent to people who interact with your bot. This you could consider like the home page of your bot, whatever people land on. Number one is the default block. The default block is when somebody types something that the bot doesn't understand. This is like, it's like, I don't know what you say. I'm not sure what to do. So these two blocks are incredibly important, and I'm going to go into those. From there, we go to cards. So the blocks are groupings of cards, and cards is every message in a chat. So when you chat with somebody on Facebook Messenger, you could call those cards. But in a bot, you can create much more fancy cards. You can create images, you can create text ones, you can have quick replies and all kinds of stuff. One of the things that I think you'll find if you start creating your own bots and doing your own stuff is you might feel weird when you want to add a typing pause in there. So I'll show you later on how you add a typing pause, but those are really important because it gives people time to read what was said before the next thing shows up. When you create your own bot, if you go ahead and do that stuff, you'll see sometimes you get like a wall of text and it's like, whoa, that is way too much. So the typing is really important. The last one, and one of the most powerful ones, is user attributes. And the user attributes allow you to store data from someone chatting with your bot. Now, there's already some built into Facebook. For instance, first name, last name, time zone. Those things are pre-built into Facebook. So you don't need to ask people for their first name. You already have it. On the right side here, you can see hi first name. That first name will obviously be replaced by the person's first name based on what they have on Facebook. There are three ways you can set user attributes. Number one, you can assign a user attribute in the background. So without anybody really knowing it, you can actually say, hey, I'm going to assign this attribute there. You can create an input box to have users send in details. For example, you could say, hey, what's your email address? And finally, you could store quick replies to a user attribute. So when somebody clicks on a quick reply, and I'm going to show you this, you can assign that to a user attribute. I'll show you this in terms of like if you were building a buyer intake form. This is the real power of chatbots. Store data, and then you can send it to people when required. For instance, let's say you build a buyer intake form. I could set a user attribute to indicate this person is a buyer, and now when I want to send out a broadcast saying, hey, I got a new listing, I'm not going to send it to everybody on my Facebook. I'm not going to send it to everybody who's interacted with my bot. I'm going to send it to the people who have indicated that they're buyers, and they'll get a Facebook message with it. The audience could be as little as one person. The audiences could be as high. I've seen some bots that are reaching over 104,000 people. It's crazy. So with that said, I'm going to talk here about Chatfuel. Now, Chatfuel is, like I said, what I'm going to be using to build this chatbot. So I would head over to chatfuel.com. And again, later on, you guys might want to do this. When you head to chatfuel.com, you're going to see this right there. Build a Facebook bot without coding. Launch a full-featured chatbot in 7 minutes. I'll tell you that is entirely true. I built my first bot just to play around with it. It took me about 15 minutes, and I was like, whoa, this thing's crazy. So all you're going to do, you're going to click Get Started for free. The first time you log on, it's going to obviously ask for your authentication. And one thing I want to highlight for you in Chatfuel is up top here, you're going to see tutorial templates. So you can actually play around with some of these and build. There's no real limit to the number of bots you can have. So you can actually go here and play around with some of these chatbots before you go and create one of these for yourselves. You'll see, if I click that open, you'll see there's a number of things you can see. So you can see enable live conversations, root users in a bot flow, those kind of things. Now, that's great, but I want to create a bot from scratch just to show you what comes. So you'll see there's a big orange create a new bot. I'll click on that button. And you'll see here that my bot is created. Now, one thing I'll say, I pre-recorded all of these screens. Now, this is exactly the way it is. I have my whole setup live as well. So if you guys ask questions, I'll be able to jump into that and talk about all that. But I wanted to make sure everything goes well. Now, notice at the top here, connecting bots to pages is temporarily disabled. Like I said, they were predicting it was a couple weeks, but that was a couple weeks ago. So I'm not sure when that's going to come back. So let's talk about what we see on this page. Number one, you'll see this option to go back and switch bots. So you can go back to your main menu where you see all of your bots, and you can click the drop-down arrow and pick other bots. On the right side, this is where you would connect your bot to a page or test your bot in Messenger. A best practice, if you're going to build your own bot, create just a test page. And, that way you can play around with your bot, and, you can just play around with it and see how it goes. Oh, let me see. Some people are saying the last video. Oh my, what is going on here? Sorry. Sorry. You know what I'm going to do? And bear with me for a quick. All right, let me see here. Okay. Are we back? There we go. Yeah, it looks like we are. So I'm going to be on Wi-Fi. Do keep that in mind. Again, some people are asking questions, asking me to get to them. Like I said, I'm really going to try to get to questions later on. But one person here, Rose, is just asking, do you create a chatbot? It has to be done outside of Facebook. Yeah, typically, yes. There's no tool within Facebook that's going to allow you to create a really advanced bot like I would be creating here. So sorry about that, guys. I don't know what's going on with the video with this. Usually I connect via wired because it's much more stable, but I'm going to switch to Wi-Fi. So do please keep that in mind. I'm on my Wi-Fi here. That means myself, for me, it might go a little bit up and down. So I really don't like being on Wi-Fi when I'm doing these webinars, but hopefully that'll keep the feed going because I don't know what was going on. All right. Let's get back to it. On the left side here, you'll see your menu: automate, set up AI, people, broadcast, configure, grow, analyze. We're going to go through that menu. Then here in the main section, these are the blocks. Now this, again, this is like the meat of your whole bot. Now, these blocks here, again, think about them like pages on your website. So every block represents, a different section, and you can actually group blocks into different content groups. And then here is where you actually edit the selected block. So let's just summarize this one more time. The blocks, you can see as I click on them, I would open up the block. On the right side, I have these cards, as mentioned, the terminology. Each card represents kind of a message that's sent out. And then the user attribute. So again, you'll see here it's highlighted in purple because it is a Facebook one. User attribute represents something that would be either set by us or sent to or sent from Facebook. So let's go ahead and build. Look at what kind of stuff can be done in these cards. So you can see I can set up a really quick little text card. Under every card, you have the option to add in buttons. So if I click on this button here, you'll see I can set up like a call me button and put in a phone number and have somebody call me. Next, you'll see I can set up an image card. Now, the image cards will allow you to, as predicted, upload an image. At the same time, it doesn't need to be just a static image. You could upload animated GIFs as well. Once you upload an image, and give it a quick second here, you will have the option to replace or crop that image when you hover over it. Pretty quick and simple. I move it to where I want. I click on done, and my image would recrop. So there you go. You can upload an image into it. As mentioned, you see I can upload a GIF as well. Now, the gallery option is really cool for creating menus and nice visual options because the gallery allows you to add in images with the content. And when you add the image, you have the choice of a horizontal or square image. I find for what I've been doing, square images work well, but they take up a lot more space. So keep that in mind. So there's my square image. I can write in a headline. So let's say talk to Mike. I can put in a subtitle, and then I can choose whether or not I want this image to actually link to some website. So you can see here, I could say, okay, let's make that image. If somebody clicks on that image, go to royallepage.ca. I can then add buttons under each of these images. So you could see here, I could type in a button name and make it go somewhere. I'll do some of that a little bit later. As you see also on the right, I can add extra images. So again, you can build really nice, really beautiful looking menus. by using the gallery cards. Notice also you can move the gallery cards around. So you can build them and then be like, oh, you know what? I want to move this around. And I can actually add cards in between. One of the things that I'll say you'll find is people are still not really that used. It's kind of like when websites started, right? When websites started, you had to say like, click on the menu, do these things, because people weren't so used to dealing with websites. So, you will find that you'll have to add in some content to tell people like, hey, to view all the menu options, scroll to the left so that people know, oh, there's more stuff here if I scroll on it. So that's one thing you definitely will find in this. Now let's look at some more advanced types of cards. The first one is the typing card. And like I said, the typing card is incredibly important because at this point right now, I haven't put any pauses. So if somebody were to interact with this bot, they would just get a wall of text thrown at them. And the typing pauses really allow you to say, okay, hold on, give them a couple seconds to make it for them to read. And the typing means they know that something else is coming. So, the typing pauses, like I said, might seem a little weird at first, but you'll find they are absolutely necessary. Then you'll have the quick replies. Now, the intention of a quick reply is to, instead of just hoping somebody types something in, like I want to learn about Mike, you can actually tell it to say, hey, here's some replies you might want to use. And notice you can also have your text reply processed by your artificial intelligence. So for instance here, I created a reply goodbye. So if somebody taps on goodbye, it will send it to my bot just as if they were typing that in. And in my AI, I could set something that says, if they say goodbye, then say this. And you always want to have the last word. Keep that in mind. The reason for that is because if you leave things open, then people, your score in terms of your response rate will go through the roof. Again, by using these bots and trying to keep things always having the last reply, your bot, your Facebook page will say this person responds very, very quickly because you'll always be responding very quickly. So that's one of the nice benefits of a bot again. All right, let's keep going. Now notice here, I have my content blocks here on the left side. So by default, Chatfuel will show you some sample content blocks. And it's really a good idea to go through these. Notice they can include things like videos, they can include images, all kinds of stuff. So you can see what kind of stuff you can build with a block. But by clicking on the little plus, you can create your own. So I'm going to go ahead, click this, and create I'm just going to call it block name. I'm just creating this just to show you what can be done. So here I'll just put a quick little text block. Now, a block could even contain nothing. If you want the bot to not respond at all, you could actually do that as well. So I'm going to go back to this welcome message. And what I want to do is connect that block to this learn about Mike. So at the bottom here, notice it says enter block name. I would type that in, it pops up there. And now when somebody taps on that learn about Mike, it would direct them to that block. This is incredibly important because, as I mentioned, you're really helping people navigate from one block to the next. So this here is saying if somebody taps that learn about Mike, let's hit them over to that block we called block name. One of the other things that can be done is, let me just delete that conversation pause there. I can create a block right from here. So I'm going to put in goodbye here. And notice I don't have a block called goodbye. So I have this option to create one. And when I do that on the left side here, that block has now been created. And it's not quite associated yet. So let me do that. I'm just going to associate it. There you go. So you see at the bottom it says goodbye. And now on my goodbye block, I can add in some text. See you later. And I'll add in a typing for at least 0.9 seconds. Alligator. There you go. Nice. That's a great way to end that bot. So that's the foundation. Again, the blocks, the cards, that's how they work. That's how you go through them. So what I'm going to say, for some of you, that might actually be enough. For some of you, go, okay, great. I get it. I see how this block works. You know what? I'm good. This is not something I want to do. So you really have two options. Number one, you could purchase a chatbot template. In the description of this video, you'll find a link to 8 real estate specific Chatfuel templates. They start at about $49. And they are available for you. Sorry. Give me 1 second. So in the description, you'll find those links. What you do when you get one of those templates, it loads into your Chatfuel. You go in there and you customize them. One of the other nice things you can do is you can preview some templates. So if you want to know what kind of things people are doing with it or how they work, you can actually preview some of them and play around with them a little bit. When you purchase, you'll have to go in and make some modifications. Number 2, as we see in the chat here, you can pay a developer to create one. And I mentioned already, there's a Chatfuel community. I'll link to that in the description as well. Actually, that is already in the description. There's tons of experts who are creating chatbots. And that's one thing that I'll emphasize again. If you're going to pay somebody, you should have at least a good base understanding of what a chatbot does so that you're not paying somebody who you go, well, that person really doesn't know what they're doing. Right? You want somebody who's really staying up to speed, who knows exactly, and who's going to say, hey, there's some new stuff. Hey, we should be doing this. Chatbots can do incredible things. I've programmed a chatbot in the past just to play around with it that, would, if you were to say, put in an MLS number, could actually go to a Google Sheets sheet, pull out the details of that listing, send back images, all that kind of stuff. It's incredible what kind of power you can do with a chatbot. I actually even created one that would ask you to say, hey, share your location. And when you shared that location, it would bring you to realtor.ca directly in front of where that person was. So within, a couple blocks, so that you could say, hey, you know what, my chatbot, you can see the listings that are around you. Now, some people are asking about the templates. I would honestly say go play around with them. I've only looked at a couple of those templates in terms of what's available, but you'll quickly see what those templates can and can't do. There's no Royal LePage specific chatbot template for you to leverage at this point. We have talked a little bit about creating one, but have not gotten to that point yet. Now, if you are saying, again, I get it, I get the foundation of it, great. You know what? Some of you might say, I'm good. I'm gonna tune out here. I'm okay with that. If you're doing that and you're saying, you know what, Mike, I see. You know what, I don't think this is for me. That's great. If you're saying, you know what, I'm gonna stick around. I want to know how to create these things. Then the first thing you're gonna do to get started is take a moment to plan. What kind of information do you really want your chatbot to share? What kinds of information do you want to gather from the user and store as a user attribute? And then also, what resources do you need? So you might need some stock images. I've put a link in the description for Pixabay. Pixabay is a free stock image photo site that you can use commercially. You can check that out. And also what landing pages. So you might want some pages on your website that set people up to say, sign up here to receive the latest listings or those kind of things. So you want to think a little bit about what kind of things you want to do. Now, again, your first chatbot should really be a test one. You should play around with it, see what it can do before you start actually creating one. So if you take a quick second, think about what kind of things people might want to ask. Think about what resources you need. Make sure you have that kind of stuff lined up. So let's go in, and I'm going to create a bot. I want to create one that's a little bit more meaningful now. I want to create a bot that would be, more geared towards real estate. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wipe out everything that's in this default bot. You'll see here, I'm just going to click through these cards. I'm going to delete this sequence. I'm not going to talk too much about sequences, which is a shame. Sequences have a lot of power. You can set people up into a sequence. It's kind of like a drip campaign. So the drip campaign, would send content over a period of time. The sequence does the same kind of thing. Now, one thing in terms of this also, somebody's asking just about, can you have multiple bots connected to the same Facebook page? No, you cannot. So again, that's why those menus are incredibly important. So here you go. I've wiped my whole bot clean. Everything is here clean, ready to go. The first thing I'm going to do is add the welcome message. Now, what your welcome message should do is welcome people into your bot. Here's somebody connecting with you. Keep in mind also that nobody will be able to talk to your bot until they click get started and they'll see the welcome message. So, some people have asked, do you what if somebody says something before this? That's never going to be the case. So I'm just going to put here, thank you, first name. We're going to have a quick show typing. Again, give a little pause so they can read that. And then say there's a number of ways that I can help you. Scroll left on the menu below to select. And I'm going to kick over to another website that I have in the description for you, and that's Emojipedia. Because Emojipedia is really important when it comes to chatbots. Emojis may seem funny to some people, but emojis will add a nice visual element to your bot. Emojis will get people to better focus on what they need to look at. So I'm going to pull up this little downward button and I'm going to drop it in here. Because again, otherwise it's just text. So this is going to give a nice little visual cue. Hey, look below you. Check that out. There's a menu there. So Emojipedia, like I said, if you're going to create your own, go in the description, go check that out, bookmark that website. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set up a GoToBlock. Now, this is not one of the cards that I talked about previously. GoToBlock, what it'll do is it'll send people to specific blocks in your bot. So here, once they get to this point, they're going to be redirected to a main menu block. And the reason for that is because that way I can help people get back to that main menu without having to reprogram it a second time. So that way that main menu can just be its standalone thing. Now notice at the top here, I do have an add filter. Because I could say, for instance, oh, if they're this type of person, if they had interacted with the bot previously, go to this block. If they're this type of person, go to that block. I'll tell you how we're using it on the Learning Services block. On our welcome message, the first thing that I have is a GoToBlock. And I created a filter that says if their language is set to French, kick them to a whole French version of our bot. So that's one of the ways that I'm handling bilingualism on our bot. So if they're French, they won't see any of the English stuff ever. They'll actually automatically get kicked into the French version of our bot, which is really, really nice. Next, I'm going to create this main menu. So let me upload a quick image here and create some of this main menu. Again, thinking about this as if I was building a real estate specific bot, one of the first things I want to make sure is that if somebody wants to get in touch with me, I know they're chatting with my bot and they could be on Messenger with me, but I want to make sure they have some options. So you'll see here, I'll set up call Mike. I'm going to put that button there. I'm going to put in a link in my to my website and my client promise. So let me go over to my website here, pull up the About Me section. I'm just going to copy and paste this URL in there. And lastly, I'm going to do one more URL. Let's call this what my clients say about me. And notice the limits are pretty short, so you really got to keep it nice and short and sweet. I'm going to go grab my testimonials page, drop that in there. Again, what am I doing here? I'm trying to build that trust side of things, right? So it's not just about contacting me. If you want to know what my client promise is, if you want to know what my people say about me, you can check that stuff out as well. Now, I've jumped ahead actually here, and I've gone and created a couple other menu options. I don't think you need to see me re-upload images each time. One of the cool ones that you'll see here, also, by the way, I cleaned it up. I added some, again, emojis. So you can see call Mike. I added a little cell phone in there so that people know, so they get a nice visual cue of it. One of the cool ones that I set up here that I've heard of is booking consultations. So actually, there's a tool called Calendly. Calendly is a calendar appointment booker. So essentially what I've done in there is created these 30-minute time slots that people could book my time between 9 and 5 p.m. It's connected to my Google Calendar. So, it won't double book me if I'm already booked for something. And what that means is, let's say there is a prospect and that person wants to meet with me. Well, good news. They don't need to call me and say, hey, Mike, when are you available? You'd like to set a meeting? They can actually go into my bot and literally book my time with me. So that's one of the nice things about these bots is that, you can do things like, hey, book my time. Now, again, if you were going back and forth and trying to do this yourself, you'd be sending a lot of messages back and forth. This bot allows you to say, hey, you know what? Do this really quickly. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to reorganize these. So I created these. And there you go. So I'm just going to reorganize these. So, I think people will want to get insight and resources prior to contacting me. So that's the order in which I'm putting stuff in. Now, some people are just asking about changing bots and those kind of things. You can see in the top, it's actually saved. So literally as I'm doing this stuff, my bot would be getting changed. It takes just a few moments for my bot to physically change. So if you're doing something like creating a bot with your listings or stuff like that, you could do that. It's going to be a lot to manage, but you could, once you upload a new listing, you can actually duplicate these these blocks. You can just create a copy of it. That's what this little icon here is. You could duplicate it if you have one for a listing and just recreate it out. And then the second that's done, it gets saved and it's automatically out there. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to finish with a quick reply. Now here's why. Again, you want to help people get through your bot. You want to help direct them through. And my recommendation to you is on every block, add in some quick replies. That's going to help people better interact with your bot, because they might not realize that there's a menu up top, or they might not want one of those options. So you're again going to try to kind of direct them to where you want to go. And I'm setting some of these up just to show you some of the features of it. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend, like, some people are going to say, get a callback. Like, why are you talking on Messenger if you want to call? But I'm setting this up so that you can see some of the stuff that's coming through. So, when I do this and set this up with the callback, I get some people who are on the webinar saying, why would I ever get a callback when I'm on Messenger? Well, the reason is because I just want to show you how we could gather some information before that callback. Now I'm going to go here. I'm going to quickly set this goodbye one. So I'm going to go text. I'm just going to add in a little text just saying goodbye, be in touch soon. So again, notice here that, again, even though I'm saying goodbye, be in touch soon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give people the option to get back to that main menu. So, maybe their last interaction was like, okay, goodbye, I'm done for now. But I'm going to give them back these options. So that way, again, they can navigate around my bot. Some people, might want to just leave it as just being like, goodbye, be in touch soon. But no, give them options to get back. Add those quick replies back in. So again, if I go, oh, I want to go back to that main menu. Next, let's head over to the contact one. So this was the block that said, if you wanted to contact Mike. So again, some of you might say, hey, you know what? I want to make sure if people want to get in touch with me, they can get in touch with me quickly. So I'm going to do thanks for reaching out. And again, I could have actually added a user attribute, their first name there. I'm really quickly going to add in a one image gallery. And here I'm going to do, just like I did before, I'm going to do the phone call one. But I'm just going to do this. Hold on, enter button name, phone call. I'm going to add another button that's an email button. And what you'll see here is in the, send an email. In the URL here, I'm actually going to do this, mail2:mvrobel@royallepage.ca. And that is the URL, the link that you would use if you wanted to send somebody an email. So just so that way people could get in touch with me. Now, what some people have done, and this responds to one of the other questions that somebody has, what if I start interacting with the bot or with the person talking to my bot? Your bot is going to keep running. So if you start talking to people with your bot going as well, your bot isn't going to stop going because it sees you talking. There is a way to do that in the advanced cards. There is a like chat function, but what some people have done is they've leveraged their Facebook page, and then they say if they want to contact me, well, here is my personal Facebook Messenger. So that's what some people have done to try to keep these a little bit separate. So that's one idea you could leverage. Next down here again, I'm going to set up those quick replies. It may seem silly. You may think, why am I going to do that again? But again, I always want to give people the option to circle back, because maybe somebody clicked to contact me, but you know what? They realize, oh no, you know what? I'm still not ready. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to reorganize these buttons quick. I'm going to put my main menu and put that in that order. So there you go. So again, I'm always circling them back, because again, remember, people need ways to get back to where they were. Now, next, let's get to this callback option. So you guys saw here, again, nothing really too crazy. I built out these cards. I let people get to my phone number, those kind of things. But what if I want to call back? What if somebody says, hey, you know what? I want you to call me. Well, before I call them back, I'm going to need to collect some information on them. So Here I'm going to set up just a real quick, sure, I'd be happy, just need a bit of information. I'm then going to set up this typing for at least 2.1 seconds. And now I'm going to hit the little plus. And let me pause on this for a quick second. Sorry, let me go back. There's a whole bunch of additional plugins to Chatfuel. So the ones we were looking at previously, they were just kind of the basic ones. But do notice some of these plugins: user input, send email, live chat. That's the one, by the way, if you wanted to like break out your bot and be like, don't interact with this person, I'm going to live chat with them. So these user input, or these plugins, are incredibly important. Notice you can pull in an RSS feed. You can have a subscriber list. You can even do Google site searches and stuff like that. So let's go here and we'll say, what's your phone number? We're going to start with this. And what this will do is ask a series of questions to the person. Now notice there is some validation here. So I'm saying that number has to be a phone number. Somebody can't type, don't want to do it. Well, that's not a phone number. So it'll kick out an error with them until they put in a phone number. So here you go. Let's also ask, what specifics did you want? Now, I'll say honestly, I don't like the way I've wrote these questions. I kind of feel like, well, maybe there's a nicer way or something a little bit better. But, I just wanted to show you how we could gather in some information for me to actually do before this callback. So notice what I'm doing here. I'm taking this information, what's your phone number, what's your email, and putting it into a user attribute. So on the right side here, this phone number is going to get stored in phone number. What that means is later on, I could re-access this information. So I could see what the person's email address is, see their specific information, and use that to broadcast stuff out. Now down here, I'm going to put in a typing again, real quick. And then here, I'll just say, great, thanks for all the information. I'll be in touch shortly. And what I'm going to do is click on the plus one more time. And this time, I'm going to pick the send email option. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to say, hey, at this point, somebody's requested a callback. So I want to send myself an email with all the details that this person has provided so that I can call this person back. So notice here, I'm going to put the title. That's my subject line. I'm going to put the email address, and notice you can add multiple email addresses separated by commas. And then I'm going to type in the body. And notice again, if I use the double curly bracket, it's going to be a user attribute I set. So this is really nice because, again, if you're dealing with a team, you have an assistant, those kind of things, it doesn't have to go to just one person. Or maybe there is one person who you have as kind of an inside sales agent, and you say, hey, you know what? If somebody asks for a callback, here you go. And what I'm going to do is I'm then going to drop in the details from this person. So you'll see contact name, first name, last name, contact. Now, some of you also have CRM systems that will parse emails like this, that will collect people's, we'll try to create contact records from emails like this. So you could be sending this off to your CRM as well. So here I'm going to put in the contact inquiry. Again, you'll see I'm just going to put in these fields. And what this is going to do is it would send an email to the email addresses I have up top. And that way I can get in touch with this person. Now, by the way, too, if I wanted to send an email to the person themselves, I could actually create another send email. And instead of the email addresses, put in the variable, the user attribute email, and send it off to them as well. Just saying, thanks for your request. I'll be getting back to you shortly. So this is one of the ways you can collect user attributes. And that's really important to understand because, again, you can imagine the power of this now. The ability for your bot to talk to people, to give them some information, and then be like, hey, oh, somebody put their hand up. I'm going to send you a notification letting you know somebody wants some details. Now, I want to put some quick replies here, but I realize that I need some text in there. So I actually make a mistake in this case because I'm going to put thank you again, although I just said thank you. So they'd be getting thank you twice. Keep that in mind. And one more time, I'm going to do those quick replies. I'm going to set people back up to get back around to the start of my bot. And this time I won't add a callback one. I'm just going to add the goodbye one. There you go. Cool. Now, next thing I want to do is the default answer. Now, the default answer, the idea behind it for you, if you're going to be setting up your default answer, is number one, let people know what they put in was, I'm not too sure what to do with that. And then, as we say, pivot them to the right place. So what I'm going to do here is say, I'm not sure I know how to help with that. And then I'm going to pivot you to say, go back to that main menu, maybe stick to the content that I have. So keep that in mind. So you can see here, again, I'm bringing back up those quick replies and I'm pivoting people back into the menus. Now, one thing I'll say about this, there are ways to set up default answers that will show random default answers or make people see things only once or stuff like that. Because right now, anytime somebody writes something the bot doesn't recognize, it's going to give them this answer. So, sometimes it can get a little bit repetitive. But it's good because, again, what I'm showing people is, hey, you know what? There's some things the bot can do and there's some things the bot can't do. And I'm not too sure. Here you go. Let me kick you out and pivot you back over to the menu. Now, in terms of that, let me go back to that main menu. And I'm going to add a section here because, I built up the little contact me page. Again, I wanted to show you the user attributes, those kind of things. But what if I wanted to create something like a buyer intake form? So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, here's, you want, let's say, a buyer guide. And notice when I created that button, it created a block automatically called buying guide. And I now have this block called buying guide up top there. And I created a new group just to keep myself organized. So I'm going to put this buying guide under this buyer group. And right away, I click on the plus and set up a user attribute. So in this case, the user's not going to see it. They're not going to input anything. But what I'm doing here is I'm saying, hey, this person who just came to my bot just clicked on they want the buying guide. So let me label them under this user attribute called buyer seller as a buyer. So that way, again, later on, if I'm broadcasting messages out, I can actually say, hey, if they said they were a buyer, let's send them this specific information instead of sending it to everybody who's interacted with my bot. Now, what I'm going to ask now is, are you a first-time buyer or moving up? Now, I could do this with clicking the plus and getting the user inputs, but I'm going to do the quick replies for these. And notice I'm running out of space. So I'm going to put here our first-time buyer and add quick reply moving up. And I'm going to actually save whatever they click on to a user attribute. And I'll call this, let's say, first-time buyer. There you go. Done. So whatever somebody clicks on, when they click on this section, will actually get stored in a field called first-time buyer. And this is one of the ways you can set up your buyer intake form. Because again, now, think about it. As people go through this, they'll go, oh, I'm a first-time buyer. From there, I can direct them to another block. Okay, great. You're a first-time buyer. Have you gone and been pre-approved for a mortgage? I mean, that's a little salesy. I wouldn't maybe necessarily ask that in such a way. But again, you can use the quick replies and store them in user attributes. So instead of just having that like question mark, are you a first-time buyer? And then telling them maybe like type yes or no because you want yes or no answers, you can actually use the quick replies to help people kind of navigate through what you want your bot to do and bring them to specific blocks based on where they're going. So again, here what I've shown you is the 3 different ways you can set user attributes up. The first way is simply to ask people for their input. What's your email address? Question mark. They type in their email address. The second way is to set up the user attribute in the background. As you saw here, when somebody hit to this buying guide page, automatically I have a card that will set in the background that they are a buyer. And I would do the same thing if they clicked through to the seller block. I would then say, hey, put them through to the seller section of things. And then here, the third way that they can be set up, if they click on first-time buyer, it gets saved to first-time buyer. And now that user attribute, and again, when I send an email, off to myself with those details, I can include that. So that walks you through all the foundation. Again, the blocks, the cards, the user attributes. Like I said, I wanted to spend a lot of time on that today because that's really, really important. But there's a lot more that can be done with it. Firstly is AI, and it's kind of a really basic AI in Chatfuel. There are some ways that you can create a much more rich artificial intelligence, but you'd be going into other third-party stuff. So let me show you this real quickly. I just clicked to the Setup AI option. And here you're going to see, for instance, one of the most common ones you'll see is thank you. So people want to say thanks to a bot. So, or hello. And notice here on the right, it says bot replies with text. So if somebody says hello to my bot, then it'll say, hey, hello there, or I am here for you, and a random answer of those three. If they say anything like this, you'll see the same thing for the thank you. So apparently people really like thanking bots. So again, you can see if somebody says thank you, TY, thanks, you can send them with a random text reply. It's my pleasure to help, sure thing. And you can add your own answers in there as well. Like I mentioned, I had set up that goodbye, and I actually created a block for goodbye, but I could have used the AI instead to generate that reply and created something random with it. I'm going to go back up here because one thing I do want to highlight is notice bot replies with block. So I can just do quick text replies. It's my pleasure to help, but I can actually reply with blocks as well. So let's say I could have a AI, if somebody says at any point, listing, I could be like, send them to this block where it asks about listings, or newsletter, send them to this block where they can sign up for my newsletter. So, that is really, really powerful because again, you can set up a lot of ways people can interact with your bot. Next is broadcasting messages. And these are super powerful for you because you're going to get people interacting with your bot. But what do you do once they're done interacting? Well, this is one thing that I know a lot of realtors have asked me for. Is there a way to broadcast messages out to people who have interacted with me? And with Chatfuel, you can. So I could, for instance, broadcast out my newsletter, and instead of sending it via email, I could actually broadcast it out over my Facebook Messenger. Now, let me show you some of the stuff that can be done with this. So I'm going to go into the broadcast tab, and there's this little option for deliver your message now. That'd be like send this out right away. Now, notice what I'm doing here at the top is I'm actually saying, hey, let's have a look. If the attribute buyer seller is buyer, then I want to send this message. Now, that's really relevant because, again, if somebody indicated they were a buyer, then I might say, hey, here's a new listing. Think about it this way too. You could set things up with neighborhoods, right? So if somebody, when in your intake form or something like that, be like, hey, what neighborhood are you interested in? And they could click on one of the neighborhoods. That gets a little tricky if you have multiple ones, right? But for instance, here you could say maybe community, those kind of things, and say, hey, that way I'm only going to show you these things, and I could actually send messages out and broadcast messages based on specific user attributes. So let me keep going with this. Notice at the bottom here, what I do then is the message is actually a bunch of cards. So just like I showed you previously, I want to let you know about a new listing in your area that's for sale. Great. I'll show typing for a couple seconds. And then, again, I could put a button underneath it for more information. I could add an image in there. So let me add a quick image so people can see what that listing looks like. I could do things like, for instance, say, click here to view the 3D virtual tour, all those kind of things as well. And then again, I can add some quick replies. So the people who had interacted with my bot, who have set themselves as buyers, I could actually have something like schedule a showing. And again, that could feed through to a block where it requests people's information and say, I don't like, when are you interested? Are you working with a realtor? All of those kind of things. So this is one of the options you could have for broadcast. The other option you can have for broadcast are triggers. So here's one of the triggers you can do. I'm going to say, let's say after last interaction. So what this is going to do is when somebody interacts with my bot, when they're done interacting with it, it's going to wait 15 minutes, and then it's going to say, did you have a specific question to ask? Now, I get this from bots all the time that I've played around with and previewed, because what they know is, this person has navigated away from the bot. So let me do something to try to bring them back in. Because again, we got Messenger on our phones. We're going to see this message. When I turn that trigger on, it's ready, it's live, it's ready to go. The other thing I can do with these triggers is I could add a trigger for after a user attribute is set. So again, let's say the user attribute is buyer. And I say, okay, once that attribute is set, wait 20 minutes and then send this message. So one of the ways you could use this is, again, if you were building a buyer intake form, the first thing I'd say, okay, set that attribute as being buyer. And then maybe if they click through, I'd set a second one to say, set it to buyer active or something. And I can here use these broadcasts to get to people who have stopped interacting with my bot for some reason. So keep that in mind in terms of what can be done. Next, we have configure. Under the configure tab, you'll be able to associate your bot with your page. You configure the menu that appears at the bottom of your bot and set the time zone for scheduled message. I'll show you this really quickly. I know I'm running a little bit low on time. So here at the top, you'll see the connect to a page. And again, right now, unfortunately, you won't be able to do that with Chatfuel. They're still waiting for Facebook to update some terms. At the bottom here, you can set a menu. So there's a persistent menu that shows up on the bottom of your bot. And right now, I find with Chatfuel, it keeps going away. Like when you click in it, it keeps going away. But with a little bit of persistence, I was able to set it up so that, again, if somebody clicks on that little menu, it opens up, goes main menu. And last, I got time zone. I'd set that time zone up to be appropriate because all of my scheduled messages would go based on either this time zone or actually the time zone of the person who would receive it. The next one that's really interesting is grow your audience. And this is where I'm going to spend the last really big chunk of my time that I have. I have 4 minutes left. Unfortunately, all the little, video up and down caused a little wasted time. But this is where, you can really get more people into your audience. So let me show you this. The first one, and I'm going to go to a real bot that I have here that I set up because it's important because otherwise I won't be able to do it, is set up a customer chat bot on your site. So all you need to do is go in, put your website domain at the top. You can direct people to specific sections of your bot if you set that up. I'd copy that code and I would paste it into my website. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to head over to this is a Client Click website, and Client Click I have confirmed will help you. If you have a bot, they'll help you get that bot on your site. So I go to About Me, and here you're going to see it's going to pop up in the bottom right corner. Hi, how can we help you? Chat now. And if I click chat now, it'll actually reopen the last conversation that I was having with that bot. Let's go back. Next, acquire users from comments. This is really powerful here as well. So I'm going to go collect the URL for one of the comments I have on my test page. Just give me 1 second. So here's a post. I click the timestamp, and this gives me a URL at the top here, a custom URL for this post. What I'm going to then do is say, for instance, let's say, for instance, I was creating a kind of a newsletter style video. And here I'm going to say, hey, if somebody interacts with that post, I'm going to send them this Facebook Messenger message. So here you can see, I'm just going to do you have any specific, let's say I was doing a contest in that video or those kind of things. And now you'll see here that rule is there. I could duplicate it or I could delete it. Next, we have the landing page. This will create a custom landing page for your bot. So let me show you what this looks like. Here you go. It actually creates a page that looks exactly like this. And then people can click the chat with bot. And when they do that, they're actually chatting with your bot. So it's really cool, again, in terms of increasing the number of people who are actually chatting with your bot. This can be incredibly powerful as well. I actually set it up with a beacon in near my desk and set it up so that anybody around would get a passive notification of nearby stuff, some advanced stuff. The last one is send a messenger plugin code, similar to the chat, but some people don't want to chat, so they'll have this option to send to Messenger, and this would capture their information when they actually send this, whatever's on your site, over to Messenger as well. Now, one of the other ways you can get people on your bot is with ads. Now, if you came to our workshop, we talked a little bit about leveraging Facebook Messenger in your ads. And one of the things we alluded to is the fact that you can actually set up quick replies and suggested replies. But with bots, you can actually connect them to your bot, and it's really, really easy. So I have a block in my Chatfuel called Research. And literally all I do here is in their block payload, I put block name, research. Now, I want to be clear on one thing. The capitalization is incredibly important. So if I don't put the lowercase n, I tried the first time and it wasn't working, I had an uppercase n. So keep that in mind. The capitalization is incredibly important. But when I do that, oh, sorry, it's not even see the uppercase B. I was having a problem with that as well. So it's block name, all lowercase, research. I have mine exactly like that. So that's one of the blocks that I have in my bot. And now if somebody clicks on that suggested reply, and I'm actually going to launch this in Messenger just to show you. So by the way, if you're trying this, you'll have the little button up there. You can do preview in Messenger. So here's the way it looks. Somebody clicks, I'd like to learn more, and it kicks them out to that block. Now, again, that's really cool because now your ads can do so much more for you if they're redirecting people to blocks with cards in them. Again, you could have one for your listings that have multiple images, multiple stuff, contact me buttons, all those kind of things in there. The last section I'll talk about is analyze. And this real quickly, I just want to emphasize to everybody here on the webinar that if you're going to start doing this stuff, and even if you're going to hire somebody out to do this, you want to be sure that they're sharing these analytics with you, because this is going to help you understand how people interact with your bot and learn what's missing so you can further build it out. Here, I'm just going to quickly go into a bot that I have created. Go into the Analyze tab on the left side in the menu, and I can see how many people are being reached, my daily new and blocked users. This is actually a test one, so it doesn't really work so well, but where people came from. I can see the popular user inputs. I can see the user retention over time. I can see user inputs not recognized by AI, the popular blocks and buttons. So again, it gives you a really good understanding of how people interact with the bot themselves. And again, so that you can go, oh, you know what? Maybe I should answer those questions or add that stuff. So I'm going to get to answering questions, but I know I'm a little bit over my time here. So I just want to emphasize to everybody that by the end of this webinar, you should have a really good understanding of the capabilities of chatbots. Like I said, if you're going to hire somebody out to do this stuff, well, now you know, hey, I want chatbots connecting with people when they comment on these videos. I want to have broadcast messages going out. You know that it can be done. So don't let your developer get lazy about it. That's right. I'm calling out some people in the chat, but don't let your developer get lazy about it. Make sure they're staying up to date. They know what's going on and that they're leveraging their chatbot for as much as possible. I want to mention in the description of the video, there's not much in terms of our customer care. They're not going to offer you much help on this. But in the description of this video, I've given you 3 resources for Chatfuel. The Chatfuel frequently asked questions, which has great resources that you can leverage. The Udemy course, like I said, it's free. It's about 3 hours, but it really walks you through how to create a bot from start to finish. And the Chatfuel Facebook community. There's a lot of people in that Facebook community who are great developers, like top of the line. Those people really have incredible amount of expertise on all kinds of things. I've learned a lot of stuff from those people. At the same time, you can check out royallepage.ca/training. We have access to the templates. You can go play around in our workshop resources section. You can go play around with the little bot that we created as well. I want to get to one of the questions that was asked, and that's the question around, can these bots help people find out about listings? And if you have your own questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I'm going to see, I'm going to do my best to answer them. And if you have to get going, thank you so much for being with me. I hope I showed you something interesting and made you go, oh, I didn't realize, or, I hope I showed you something new. And, keep in mind, this is recorded, so you can come back and watch the end of this as well. So, there's a lot that can be done in terms of helping people with their real estate search. And it all depends on kind of how you have your websites set up on your site. So for instance, you could have, I actually set up a bot. This one here, I actually used a hack on the realtor.ca the URL, the web address. If you look at the realtor.ca web address, you'll notice there's a lat long in it. And when somebody shares their location with you in your Facebook Messenger, you can actually spit out that latitude and longitude. So what I did here is I said share location, and then somebody clicked share location, and it actually will spit them out back onto realtor.ca specifically around your listings. So let me show you this. So I'm just going to go here. I got this. It's not, this is just for my testing, but you'll see I did loc search, and I did send location. So I'm going to say here, It's got me a little bit wrong. I'm going to move myself over here. I'm going to hit send location. Great. Check out listings. Check this out. It's going to spit me out onto realtor.ca. And because I'm in a more commercial area, it's actually brought me up commercial stuff. And I can see now that 40 Winford Drive, there's something here for that's commercially available. So, I mean, this is the extent to what can be done. I've set up things with webhooks and stuff like that you could pull up listings. The tricky thing with this that I will say, Eric, and I know, Eric, you're a very technical guy. The tricky thing with this is keeping it updated. That's the biggest challenge. So what I'd really recommend is try to leverage, like maybe have a featured listing, those kind of things, but really try to, get people to a good website where, and again, you could use like communities or stuff like that if they're interested in, let's say, Etobicoke over Scarborough. You could say, okay, click, let me know what community, and then I'll bring you to those listings in that community. Or let me know if you're looking for condos or homes, and try to get them to more relevant results. But I would say the challenge there is keeping things updated, especially when you're talking at your level. So I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes here and just see if anybody's got any questions. I do want to thank Immeuble CDMX. I know in the chat, a little self-promotion, but in terms of that, you've answered a lot of questions for me in advance, which is really nice. And one of the big questions that you answer is the question around ROI. This is a really, really tricky thing. It depends on realistically, I mean, how much you're spending. I've heard of agents who are spending quite a bit of money on setting up these chatbots and stuff like that, and how good the person who's setting it up for you is. Now, because this is really new, this is the ROI here comes with the perception of it. You can imagine what it means for somebody to be on your Facebook page and going, hey, oh, look at this. This is crazy. And then again, you go, hey, you know what? I'm going to put your featured listing in our featured listing chatbot. And they'll be like, what? My other agent has no idea what he's talking about in terms of doing that. So it is really hard to say, and I haven't heard nobody say anything in terms of the specific ROI they were getting. But I've heard agents who are leveraging chatbots who are saying, hey, you know what? They're getting discovered. They're getting a lot of people interacting with it, and they're finding it's warming people up. So I know, Brad, that's a little bit of not the full answer you'd like, but people are saying they're getting good results. And in terms of your ads and stuff on Facebook, I've heard of great results with Messenger ads. Keep in mind now, by leveraging a bot, you can give really, really quick access to really detailed information. And again, with that bot, you could actually then go and say, hey, you want more details? Give me your email address. I'll send you more details. And now you get an email that gets sent out. For you, Brad, think about it this way also. In terms of the recruiting side of things, you could say when somebody wants to say, hey, you know what? I want to set up a meeting. Use Calendly and have them set up their own interview with you. Again, if you manage your calendar and it integrates with Gmail, it costs, I think, something like $7 a month, which is pretty cheap. But you could just be like, hey, they'll set up their own interviews to sit with me and recruit with them. And what I've heard about that is people say when they set up their own appointments, they're really not likely to miss it because they feel the onus is on them to show up. If you want to talk more about it, Brad, I mean, feel free to reach out. But other than that, I mean, I don't see too many other questions. I want to thank you guys so very much for being on this webinar. This chat was going crazy. I could not keep up with it. Thanks so much for also understanding. I know we had a couple technical glitches in there, but thanks for understanding. Thanks for sticking it out with me. I really, really appreciate it. Know that we are, always trying to bring you the latest and greatest. And this is something that I really, really wanted to get out to people before they start seeing it from everybody else. So I want to thank you guys so very much for your time, your attention. I hope I showed you something valuable, interested, maybe something that got a little gear moving in your head so that you're going, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't so crazy. Remember, again, in the description of the video, there's links to templates and those kind of things. And one thing I've even said to realtors who get really good at this is, if you get really good at this, you start selling your own bot. One question that I have from Haney Adam, is this session recorded? Yes, this session is recorded. It is recorded live as we speak. Haney, if you want to go back right now, you could go back and rewatch this session immediately. So, this session is recorded. I'm going to send out a link to everybody as well to the recording. Thank you guys so much. You guys are so kind. Feel free to thumbs up the video, by the way. I forgot to mention that. Never hurts. So with that said, I'm going to write out my email address here one more time. I'll just put learning services here. You can do that. info@royallepage.ca. Feel free. Thank you guys so much. I know you guys, this has been a really fun webinar to put together, and I really hope that I taught you something interesting. So maybe some of you will reach out and say, hey, I created my own chatbot, and I'd love to see them, by the way. If you have your own chatbot, send them out. Oh my God, I forgot to mention too, if you create a chatbot, feel free to share it out with your friends. Get them to test it out. It's a great way to get a couple extra leads because you go, hey, some of them might be doing some real estate stuff. So keep that in mind. So thanks so much, everybody. And we'll see you in actually next week. I got another webinar with Buffini and Company. So hopefully I'll see you guys all next week. Cheers, everybody. Have a great day.